I'd like to add squatting to another day in my training week. Up until now, for the last few months, I have been doing squatting only once a week because I was trying to balance the volume for my lower body and because I was also dedicating a good chunk of time to jumping and more athletic endeavors. And so I am still unsure as to what is a good volume to shoot for when it comes to balancing both strength training and plyometrics and explosive stuff. But what I do know is that I would like to get some more squatting in. So this time it was front squats. A few days ago, or at least a few days before this session currently rolling, which was the week before, as I'm still trying to catch up with all of those, I was doing back squats, and since I had reintroduced them, I wasn't really doing heavy intensity. I was staying with two sets of 8 reps at 70 kilos. And so I did the same with front squats, which before the end of the year, I was pushing for sets of 75, but because I changed the gym and I also added another squat session, I wanted to take it a bit easier, not doing too much volume for the first week where I was reintroducing the back squats. I think it was a good idea overall. The 70 kilo front squats were feeling challenging, but they weren't pulling me forward as much as the 75s were. I'm starting to think that maybe I had progressed to a heavier weight on the front squats a bit too early, even though I was able to do those for 5 repetitions. Um, 70 still feels challenging and it allows me to get a few more repetitions in, which may not be too conducive to developing strength in the short, medium term, but at least it's working on that technique and allowing me to get and sit in the hole and get some extra isometric on the upper back. So overall, it's probably going to be a slower progression in terms of weight, but if I can improve the technique more along the way, then it's a trade-off that I am willing to make, especially since I have put the back squats back into the program. So I will be doing 2 sessions where I'm doing squatting. And so if the front squat session is a bit more technique oriented and higher in volume, it's not too bad. And the other main movement for the day was an upper body one, was the overhead presses while standing. I had done them seated for a good while, a few months, and I was doing them from pins. I thought that I would be changing things up slightly. The weight is the same that I was doing them from pins while seated. I was doing just a couple of reps less just because it's the first time that I'm reintroducing them after a few months, and I wanted to get a couple of sets where all the reps were clean and controlled, especially from the core standpoint. But the main focus was really on the eccentric. I didn't really want to speed things up as the bar was lowering because in the past I have experienced that too fast of an eccentric, that it wasn't controlled enough, was then putting too much stress on the rotator cuff, and that was probably part of the reason why I got injured in the first place. So I started off doing them seated because I wanted to reset from the pins in a way that it allowed my shoulder to always get in a relaxed position and then re-engage. But in here, as I am stopping at the chest, it's not really a dead stop because the shoulder is still engaged. And it's probably what I feel the next natural step in reintroducing a fuller range of motion that actually takes the load at all times throughout the repetition, and there is no moment where I can just reset. I will still be keeping in the dumbbell overhead presses while seated because it provides another variation on basically the same movement from a seated position with dumbbells, so there is a bit more freedom of the shoulders to move in the preferred way. But in here, with the barbell, I'm able to push a bit heavier loads, and if I am careful and cautious about the way that I'm doing it, I can slowly progress these, and hopefully the shoulder is not going to give me trouble in the future. I also really liked the giant set itself, starting off with an upper body compound movement, then getting a bit of rest and going into a lower body compound, and finishing it off with something for the core, which utilizes the same station, the same rack, was the hanging leg raises as well. So getting some core in there, and then I moved over to do some volume on this hip thrust machine. I had already used this machine once earlier last year when my old gym was closed. And at first I thought it would be much easier than the hip thrust with the barbell on the floor. But this is deceivingly much harder than I thought. And I knew about that. So I only put up 2 plates of 25 kilos each, which added to the initial weight of the machine, added up to 73 kilos. And it was much more challenging than with the barbell, where I can do 120 kilos for upwards of 10 repetitions. And so I will be progressing these as normal to get some extra volume in there. And to finish it all off, I was doing some work for the hip, trying to explore all the various ranges of motions and see how far I can go, trying not to feel any pain and to pump some blood in there. Ciao!